Thank you, Usman. Really appreciate it. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Secretary General for inviting me and for the CTO to have me as a presenter. Now, let me tell you a story for us, because when I think about rethinking work, rethinking the HR function, I remember some significant moments in my own life. And the dates go through from December 27th, 1990. If I go back to 1984, if I go forward to 1995, I go forward again to 2007. Now, the reason these are significant is because for each of those moments, I had to rethink. I had to reassess my current state of thinking and change my approach. So rethinking is not just a matter of I am thinking something different, but when I think something different, I must do something different. So I want to share with you a short presentation um, on how do we rethink work and what are the implications of not rethinking work as I share with you my own experience of rethinking my own work. Now, if I go back to my natural my natural style is one where I'm more people oriented. But I studied engineering. I studied telecommunications, worked in telecommunications for over 25 years. And I wondered, I'm not a natural engineer, to be honest with you. I studied engineering, but engineering is not something that's natural to me. I am more people oriented. So I began to recognize as I grew older that the technology foundation really cemented for me the ability to be able to utilize technology for building capacity. And one of the things that we will recognize is that if we are not able to leverage technology, we are going to struggle. So let me share with you a story of two of my children. Ayana is 25. She's a doctor. She's a pediatrician. Michael is 13 and now entering primary school, secondary, sorry, he's now in primary school. Now, one of the things that I've recognized is that there are similarities about Michael and Michael and Ayana, and there are differences about Michael and Ayana. I go back to Ayana being 3 years old. We're in the Cayman Islands, and she's jumping on the bed, and I'm trying to make sure she's protected. As Ayana grew, I had to rethink my approach to protecting her. And organizations in this economy, in this current scheme of things, must begin to not just rethink, but respond. And don't know if someone can give me access to be able to share my screen. What I wanted to share with you is a couple impacts of the current environment. So let me share a few of them with you as I continue my story. Because my story as a father with Michael and Ayana and rethinking my approach based on, first of all, when I got married, then when I joined Cable and Wireless, then when Ayana was born and we launched internet in Dominica, going back in 1995. The rethinking and the convergence of building capacity and technology was something that was critical to, first of all, my ability to continue to manage my family because it was important. Now, when I look at the impact of technology, then look at the impact of the different generations in the workplace, then look at the social implications and the changes in the societal structures, and then obviously the COVID pandemic. So I look at these four things and recognize that they each have implications for organizations as far as organizational leadership, organizational culture, employee engagement, and the operating models of organization. So we have external factors bearing in on organizations that's going to change or has changed the way work is viewed and the way work is actually performed. So when I think about how I function with Ayana and how I function with Michael, they are two different personalities, and therefore my approach to them must be different. So when I look at organizational culture, employee engagement, when I look at organizational leadership, when I look at organizational models in terms of the operating structure, I ask myself, what does HR need to do in rethinking the way HR functions? And I want to look at four things that the changes in the technological space, in the medical space in terms of COVID, in terms of the transgenerational nature in the workplace, and the societal changes, and how organizational structures, how organizational leadership, how organizational engagement of its people needs to change to ensure that in actual fact we can be building capacity. Usman mentioned a short while ago the whole concept of, and I don't want to say the move away, but the reality that while we need degrees, and I've got an MBA, so I don't want to suggest that structured degrees are unimportant, but skill sets and the building of skill sets that are usable in the workplace are essential to ensuring that we are able to apply principles, not just learn theory. And the capacity building space need to think through, how do we ensure that that happens? So let's look at what I call the rethinking of HR as we think about what HR leaders need to do in terms of rethinking the HR space. And the first thing I want you to think about is the whole idea of HR leadership. Now, as an HR leader, the question is how does your current model need to change? What I tend to see over the years is you have HR managers that are extremely strong and are extremely in control of what is going on within the organization from a people standpoint. And then you have HR directors or managers who are more administrative based. So you have these two contrasts. And I would like to suggest that none of these are correct. HR managers need to rethink their leadership model, where they need to understand that their ability to facilitate and to pass on and be a consultant and a partner to the managers within the organization so that they can manage their people is essential. So from a leadership standpoint, HR managers must be a partner and at the table at the C-suite, but must understand that their role is to facilitate managers, leaders, supervisors' ability to manage their people. So HR managers must change and must rethink from a perspective of leadership. The next thing I want to think about is the perspective of employee engagement. Now, employee engagement is something that is elusive. It's something that a lot of us sometimes we measure once and then the next 3 years, and we don't do it consistently. But we all know, and it's been proven that engaged employees perform at a much better rate. Now, technology is changing and COVID has changed, and which means that employees are no longer required to be in the office. And managers' old times perspective of, I must see you to believe that you're working, has fundamentally been shattered. It means, for example, that HR managers must help managers understand that this type of model is something that is going to continue into the future, and therefore they must review the way they engage employees. I'll give you a simple example. Employees must work from home, which means they must have stable internet connections. Employees must work from home, which means that they must be able to have a network at home that gives them the ability to connect all the time. Now, unlike me, I have an engineering background, so therefore I can set up my own home network in terms of most of the things. But HR must understand that engaging employees would mean, for example, getting involved in helping employees set up their home networks. Not necessarily by doing it for them, but being able to facilitate maybe by giving loans, maybe by providing IT support from the organization, maybe by doing training courses. So that type of engagement has to be different. The way that we build teams have to change because people are remote and people are functioning differently. So employee engagement is different. The first thing I want us to think about is the whole idea of the role of the HR manager at the executive table. So you as the HR manager must be able to have a conversation around business growth. You must be able to have a conversation around how each of the individual members of the executive team function. Because you as the HR practitioner, as the HR strategic partner, must be in a position to be able to build capacity, not just below your level, but across the organization. It means you must understand what your colleagues are dealing with, going through, and be able to understand how you can support and build their capacity without feeling that you must come into the to the C-suite meeting putting on an HR hat. You must put on an organizational hat to be able to review and to be able to support your HR, your other colleagues within the C-suite. And the fourth thing that HR managers, I believe, must do in terms of the HR function is to relook at the whole idea of capacity building and human resource development. If you don't develop your people, then you are stagnating the organization. And I'm not just thinking about a single row of skills. I'm talking about a broader range of skills. And for me, the whole idea of ability to be aware and be emotionally connected is important. So let me share a simple model with you that, as I close, to be able to explain to you what you need to think about. You need to think about at the base, what is in it for me? What I mean for me, I don't mean for you as the HR manager, but for each individual within the organization. Adults only learn when something is in it for them. So you must be able to present something that says, what's in it for me, so they must understand that. Then the issue of self-awareness. If I'm not aware of myself, it doesn't matter what training you lay on top of that is going to crumble. The foundation of any training program, any capacity building program starts with self-awareness. It then goes to mindset. It then goes to the way we think and the way we perceive things and how we should look at things. It then moves to training, coaching, and application. Because training on its own, I'm sure you've seen, hasn't quite worked. You must infuse that with coaching and mentoring, and then with the application of that through projects, through special assignments. And then there must be a layer of tracking and accountability. Many times we send people to training, but nothing follows. We do not have the manager, the supervisor, or the leader of that unit tracking and monitoring and facilitating the assurance that these skills are